Welcome to the 11th annual We the People, the Citizen and the Constitution Practice Hearing Showcase at Mississinawa Community Schools. COVID 19 has changed the way we normally conduct the program this year. The high school was forced to temporarily eliminate the course because of scheduling and staffing complexities, and the middle school team was unable to travel to the various competitions that would normally have been held in Fort Wayne and Indianapolis. Nevertheless, the Indiana Bar Foundation created a framework for conducting the culminating activity of this course, the mock congressional hearing, via the Zoom platform. So we welcome you tonight via that medium. Since most of our viewers are new to We the People, allow me to familiarize you with what you are about to experience this evening. Our showcase is a practice run of the competition in which our students will be participating next Friday. During the competition, both of our student teams are divided into 6 groups, each one committed to a specific portion of the We the People curriculum. They've spent months studying the U.S. Constitution, the function of our government, and the philosophy behind our most cherished rights. The students were then given a collection of critical thinking questions prior to this evening, and they have prepared essays for each of the 6 units of study. This evening, each of our 6 unit groups will be asked a series of questions by our volunteer judges. Each unit group will present its prepared statement and then answer a series of follow-up questions attuned to the relevant topic. Between prepared statements and follow-up questions, each hearing session is designed to last 10 minutes. Our judges will be evaluating the performance of our teams and will be providing valuable feedback that we can use in district competition next week. Perhaps just as important, tonight's showcase gives you an opportunity to witness the hard work and dedication of your own student. We want to thank our volunteer judges for taking the time out of their lives to perform this most essential function in preparing for our students, and we couldn't be more delighted to have them with us tonight. We're certain you'll be impressed with the amount of knowledge and understanding that our students will prove to you this evening. Some of our students haven't had much experience in front of an audience, and we're very proud of their performance and their courage. Despite the innumerable distractions and demands on their attention, some might be nearer and dear to their hearts than the study of government. They have, nevertheless, each devoted time, effort, and energy and understanding to better understand how our constitutional democracy functions and how best to sustain the blessings of liberty in this country. That is truly in the spirit of civic virtue. So congratulations to each of our participants, and without any further ado, we will begin with the Unit 1 hearing.
Welcome. So I was just introducing myself. I am your host. I am not a judge. I will be the timekeeper. Then I'll kind of be the one, I'm the actual host of the Zoom. I was just introducing myself. I was the 8th grade We the People coach for the sophomores, the current sophomores. So, and I'm now just a teacher at the high school. So Mr. Williamson is doing the other 3 teams. He's the We the People coach for the high school, and I'm like an old coach. So I'm just going to hand it over to Dr. Bartley, and he's going to lead the introductions of the judges, and then you guys are going to introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gowan. Good to see you, folks. It'll be nice to meet you in just a moment as you introduce yourselves. I am Dr. David Bartley from Indiana Wesleyan University, and I'm also the supervisor for the Social Studies Education program here on the Marion campus. And I think this is my 4th or 5th year doing this. I don't know, a semi-veteran, I don't know. Let's take a moment and introduce the other judges on this panel, please.
My name is Nathan Earl. I am a sophomore at Ball State University. I'm studying social studies education. I'm a We the People alum from 2017. This is my 2nd time doing this, so hopefully it'll be a little better this time. And I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say.
I'm Abby Haynes. I was in We the People my senior year, so that was 2016.
Wow.
I'm a senior at Taylor University. I'm studying philosophy, political science, and economics. I'm hoping to go to law school next year, so really excited to hear what you guys have to say and have a good discussion.
Yeah, we are all looking forward to this. Let me ask our student panel to take a moment and introduce yourselves. You'll have to unmute maybe Ms. Gowan controls that, but if you would each introduce yourself, we'd appreciate it.
I'm Chloe. I'm in 8th grade, clearly, but I am quarantined right now.
We heard that. That's.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hope you're still feeling well, though.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sick.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
How about the others?
My name is Jocelyn Fonts, and I'm in 8th grade.
And you're not
My name-
quarantined.
No.
That's good. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My name's Madeline Franks, and I'm an 8th grader at Archie Baskett.
Excellent. Well, nice to meet you all. We're here as part of the Unit 1 group, and we're quite excited to hear the responses you prepared and the answers you'll provide. So if we could, let's focus our attention then on the topic of our discussion. Let me provide the question and then invite you to share your written response at this point. The founders were concerned with how to preserve a Republican form of government. According to the founders, what was Republican government? What weaknesses did the founders think would lead to the failure of Republican government? How did the founders think these weaknesses could be prevented? And do you think the founders' solutions were correct? Why or why not? Who'd like to start?
Okay.
Go for it, Chloe.
Yeah. Okay. Thousands of years before our nation was a country, the founders were fascinated by the Romans. The reason why the founders were so fascinated by the Romans is that they had a government in which the power is held the people who elect representatives. This is called a republic. The founders read that the Romans themselves wrote about the people and the government, the Romans republic. Based on this research, the early Roman Republic, the founders defined the government as a system where the citizens have the power to govern themselves. Citizens delegate or entrust their power to leadership. They elect to represent them and to serve their interests in citizens, and their representatives work together and promote the common good rather than their own individual interests. Today, 90 countries out of 195 are Republican governments. Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Costa Rica are just some examples of the countries with Republican government. Although our founders thought it was the best government, they understood that we had some weaknesses.
Within the Republican government, the founders found 3 major flaws that would make this system susceptible to failure. These 3 flaws could cause sustainable damage to America's newly founded government. The first of these flaws is that Republican government works best in small communities. In small communities, most people agree with each other and care for each other. This was not the case due to America's large size and population. The next problem in the Republican government system is that the people in a republic have to be very much alike, and there cannot be much diversity among them. They cannot differ with their wealth, their moral beliefs, or just the way they live their everyday life. People were coming into America from all different countries all around the world. With that, they brought with them different languages, religions, customs, and beliefs. Imagine if a science major, an art major, and a religious major all had to come together to create a rocket to launch into space. That is how it would be with the Republican government. Everyone having different ideas and beliefs of the things that how should be done, not to mention how they should be done. The last possibility in there being a failing Republican government is that people are destined to divide into factions. Factions are groups of people based off of interests. Since each faction has their own personal interests, they are destined to fight with each other and the government in order to achieve what they are wanting, rather than fighting as a whole for the common good. All of these flaws working alongside of each other could highly increase the chance of failure in early America. Although there were several flaws, the founders created their own form of government that could help to resolve these issues.
James Madison believed that America should have a Republican government so they could incorporate their own ideas and beliefs in order to make it succeed. He said that members of the government should be elected by America's population instead of a smaller number of people or a favored group of people. Laws would be made and administered by representatives elected by a large American a large American population. He, along with other founders, believed that you could organize government in such a way that could help prevent the abuse of power by a person or faction. He wanted to create a government that would fit human nature as it is, not as one might wish it to be. We think the founders' solutions were correct because it gives good solutions that could help prevent failures in the Republican government. It also gives good reasons to why the solutions could work, like his belief that you could organize the government in a way that could help avoid the abuse of power by any one person or faction. Thank you for your time. We're ready for your questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Let me invite the fellow panelists here to offer some follow-up questioning.
So I guess I'll start. You mentioned that one of the flaws that they found in this form of government was that it worked best in small communities. Would you guys be able to expand on that and talk to how smaller communities work best with this kind of government?
Yes. So smaller communities, they are normally knowing each other on a better personal basis because they have an opportunity to speak with everyone and they can voice their opinions to each other. Therefore, they are more likely to get along.
I agree with her, and
Okay.
Very good.
In America, we talk about a lot about like how we want to preserve our democracy, but in reality, obviously, we're not a true democracy. We are a republic. Would you favor a direct democracy over a representative democracy?
Anybody like to respond to that?
I would not favor a direct democracy because I think that people in America have a wide variety of education range. There's some people who have a high school education, there's some people who have a college education, and if you don't have that proper education, I don't believe that you should be able to make those political calls.
I agree with Maddie.
I mean, it can differ. Like, there's a good plus side to what Maddie says, but like at the same time, we're both like we're all citizens of the United States, so we should have our right to vote and stuff.
Any other thoughts before we move on? Well, then, let me add another follow-up question then. Does an independent judiciary support or conflict with republicanism? Anybody have any thoughts?
I believe that it does definitely have conflictions because in an independent judiciary, they tend to have their own ideas, which normally do not correspond with Republican government views.
Yes, I totally agree with that, and that's right.
Any other follow-up questions?
So within a Republican form of government, there's usually two different types of representation. We're going to have trustee representation and delegate representation. So in trustee representation, the representative saying, you voted for me, I'm going to vote based on my conscience. And then in delegate representation, they take the will of their constituents, the people who voted for them, into account when they make decisions. Which do you think is better for a representative democracy? Should they vote based off what they think or what their voters think?
I believe that the people that we elect to support and oversee and represent our country, we are the people electing them. So I think that they should make decisions based off of our views and beliefs.
I agree with Maddie.
Both of the trustee and delegate has its flaws and like benefits. So it just depends on how you look at it. So have different different takes on it.
Well, then let me also ask, how is the common welfare promoted in a Republican form of government?
The common welfare is supported in a form of Republican government because the people who elect our country, they need to be supporting everyone's opinions. We are picking them to run our country, not their own life. They're responsible for all of the United States.
Chloe, I see you shaking your head yes.
But people, like Maddie said, people have the right to like run the country, and that's why you represent.
Very good. Any other follow-ups? I'm not hearing any.
I think we may be set.
I think we're good. Well, excellent. Thank you so much. We enjoyed working with you, hearing your responses and answers. Ms. Gowan, I'll leave it to you. Do we offer feedback now, or do we wait and do that? Okay.
Yes, go ahead and every judge give their feedback now. We have about 10 minutes or so, so take your time.
Okay, very good. I'll take the liberty of going first, if you don't mind. I thought your written responses were all three excellent, well thought out. I especially liked references to, for instance, Chloe mentioned the Romans. Jocelyn, you mentioned Madison. And I likewise, the three flaws that you referred to, Madeline, were very appropriate, very, very well applied. If I had any concern, it might be that sometimes when you agreed with your panelist colleague, you didn't often tell me why. And I'm always interested in knowing your thoughts as well as your agreement. But it was very good to support the effort of your teammate. It's very good. I'll leave it to others now.
I think you guys did a great job. I loved your written response. I liked the references to, the Roman Republic. I liked you talking about Madison. It's the father of the Constitution. The three flaws you listed, those are, great things to understand. I do agree with him that if you're going to agree with your teammates, just build upon it. Even if you're just, rewording what they said, it's better than I agree. The judges are going to like that a lot more. And it's also okay to disagree with your teammates. I mean, I did that in competition. It doesn't have to be nasty, but you can politely disagree with anyone. But overall, great job.
Yeah, I'll echo what's already been said. I thought your written response was very well written. I thought that you guys answered the questions well and expounded upon them well. If I could just give some feedback for the question and answer time. Yeah, just you guys have thought about this. You've written an essay on it. You've, done all of this work. Feel free to tell the judges that they want to hear what you have to say. So not only when you're agreeing, but when you're disagreeing. I saw, Chloe, you were getting a little antsy, and it is weird on Zoom to try and figure out when to talk and how to navigate that. But that could be a good discussion that you guys could have as a team, maybe give a signal or something like that for when you would like to jump in, because again, it's a little weird on Zoom and hard to navigate. So, but all in all, you guys did a really great job.
Let me also add, Madeline, I enjoyed your analogy of building a rocket. That was a good illustration of your point. And always keep in mind, since you're heading to further competition, to work as a team and support each other, just as you're doing. We saw that very evident this evening, and just keep doing it, double down on it. You strengthen each other when you work together.
Awesome. Great job, ladies. You did a great job. Give us a round of applause. Judges, if you don't have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and send you three to the breakout room. And then girls, just stay on for a minute because I have a couple of things I need to say. Okay?
Good luck,
Thank you
guys.
again. We enjoyed it. And that would be me. Grady, take a couple of deep breaths and catch your wits. We're actually putting you, through the ropes tonight. And indeed, I'm Dr. David Bartley from Indiana Wesleyan University, and I'm supervisor to the social studies education program here. And Ms. Gowan is actually one of my former students, of which I am incredibly proud, as she has launched her professional career, and it's great to watch, and it's great to work with her now as a colleague. So let me invite the other judges with me to introduce themselves, please.
My name is Nathan Earl. I'm a sophomore at Ball State University. I'm studying social studies education. Did We the People in 2017, my junior year. I'm just really excited to hear what you guys have to say.
My name's Abby Haynes. I'm a senior at Taylor University studying philosophy, political science, and economics. I did We the People in 2016, and then when I was in 8th grade as well. So I know where you're coming from. I know probably what you're feeling. And so always excited to be back, and I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Excellent. And we all look forward to working with you as a student panel. Unit 2, of course, focuses on what shaped the founders' thinking about government, and in particular, it deals with the Declaration of Independence. But before we launch into the question, I'd like each of the students to introduce themselves so we can get better acquainted. Whoever's willing.
Hi, my name's Samuel, and I'm an 8th grader at RJ Baskett.
Hi, my name's Katie. I'm an 8th grader at RJ Baskett.
Hi, I'm Grady Schnepp, and I'm an 8th grader at RJB.
Excellent. Classmates, no doubt, or at least you know each other. Nice to meet you and get better acquainted. Let me share with you tonight's question as we focus on this, and following that question, I'll invite each of you to share your written responses, after which we will then take turns offering some follow-up questions to what you have presented, as well as the general theme of the Declaration of Independence itself. Let me proceed with the question then. The Declaration of Independence told the world why the Americans wanted to free themselves from British rule. The Declaration stated the founders' beliefs about government. Using the Declaration as your source, but in your own words, describe the principles of good government. Where did the founders get these ideas? And do you think these principles are valid today? Why, or maybe why not? Please.
Yeah. The Declaration of Independence was basically a breakup letter to King George III. Even though the Declaration was very short, it was a very important piece of writing that was inspired by many unspeakable acts done by the king to the colonies. The colonists were tired of his rule and wanted to split off from it as they saw it unfair. They worked for a long time to perfect the Declaration and make sure it hit all the key points they wanted it to hit. However, the Declaration is not a very long document. It has 4 important parts. They are the ideals, arguments, complaints, and the conclusion. They each have a very important purpose to make sure the Declaration was concise. According to it, a good government protects the basic natural rights of the people it governs. Those rights are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence also stated that a good government should not, and I quote, refuse to approve laws necessary for the public good, seek to destroy the colonial legislatures, obstruct justice by refusing to give certain powers to the colonial courts, keep standing armies in times of peace, require the quartering or housing of soldiers, impose taxes without the consent of the people to be taxed, cut off trade between the colonies and all parts of the world, and in some cases deny the colonists the right to trial by jury, end quote. The founders thought about this long and hard before writing the Declaration of Independence, and they drew their ideas from many different places.
The founders were heavily influenced by the philosophies of John Locke. They liked how Locke included the natural rights of people and how he explained how the government should protect them. This, however, showed them how the king's form of government was wrong toward his subjects in England. The Declaration of Independence was also influenced by many other different types of government, some of which they got from Rome, while others were their own ideas on what a good government should look like. However, a lot of ideas he had when writing the Constitution were pulled from the Declaration of Independence. It had a lot of principles that they agreed with and supported. Thomas Jefferson gave a quote that said, and I quote, "It is an error alone which we need the support of the government. Truth can stand by itself," end quote. We think that this is what the influence of topic because he was referring to the lies the king told them.
We believe that many of these principles are very important today, and we should live by them today. For one, the Declaration of Independence lit the metaphorical fire under which the Bill of Rights and the Constitution were forged. The founders thought that if government violates natural law, then it should be the right of the people to change or abolish it. For example, when King George III violated his agreement with the colonists had the right to withdraw from the rule of the king and could establish their own government. Like the present day, when the president violates our natural rights, it is our duty to impeach his or her position as president. A second principle the founders thought was necessary was the rights of the people were based on natural law. Natural law is an unchanging set of laws that govern human relations. The government is to respect and protect our natural rights, like the court case Katz versus the United States in 1967, when Charles Katz used a phone that was bugged by the FBI without a warrant. This is a violation of the natural right of privacy. When the Declaration of Independence said that all men are created equal, it paved the way for equality of race, sex, and religion. It helped form the movements of national leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, and more. The statement still helps people today move toward equality for all and improve the way people are treated in society. Thank you for listening to our essay, and we are ready for your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your work. Let me turn to my fellow judges to offer some follow-up questions.
I guess I will go first.
Okay.
What mechanisms are in place that would allow us to revolt against our government? So what was included in the Declaration or in the Constitution or in the amendments that allows us to revolt or protest our government?
I believe that it was that the abolish and or impeachment of a president, because if they go out, because a president cannot declare war on a person, on a country, and they can also not actually make the law, so it'd have to go through the checks and balances system.
Are there any basic rights not listed in the Declaration of Independence or in the Constitution that you think need to be listed out? Okay. So say a state, I guess I'll just ask another question. So say a state doesn't want to be part of the nation anymore, and that's going to be their way of revolting. Do you think if a state wants to leave the union, they should be able to do so, and why or why not?
I think personally that they should be allowed to do so under some conditions, just to make sure that like the United States, like first the executive branch and then like the legislative and then the judicial branch, I believe like they should all agree that that state should be able to separate before it does. And then after that, like they should monitor the state to see how it's doing, and then they can let it go and be independent.
I don't think that they should monitor the state. They can let it be its own country, but I don't think they should monitor it, because if it wants to be its own country, it should be independent and not need supervision from any other country.
Let me follow up as well. Did the Declaration reflect the opinions of all the colonists at the time? Why or why not?
I don't believe so, because just like in anything in government, there's always going to be people that disagree with what is being put out there. Because even if something seems perfect to every single other person that was in the colonies at the time, there was people that did not think that it was right, and because no one is going to perfectly agree with every single document and every single law that's put out.
I agree with Katie as well there. Like there were some they called them loyalists in the colonies that didn't really want to split off from like Britain and do the Declaration of Independence. They just wanted to keep going how they were before. And as always, like how Katie said, there are going to be disagreements that people make. But yeah, I think it was a very big step for our nation.
And it definitely, like what they said, it won't cover everyone's opinion, because not everyone was there like giving ideas of what they believe. There could be ideas with people presenting them, but not everyone was there to give their singular idea.
Thomas Jefferson suggested that every generation should potentially have a revolution or reshape how the country works because of changing demographics and stuff. And you could argue that the government in place right now is not working for America today. A lot of people are arguing. I mean, we are potentially about to have, 2 elections in a row where, a minority elects the president. And I'm wondering if you think we need to look at reshaping our government and how that would look.
When you said that Thomas Jefferson quoted that all generations should have a reshaping of the government, in some senses that is true, while in other senses I don't think that is very right, because it takes a long time and a lot of hard work, I can imagine, to develop a new government. And sure, change is a good thing, but sometimes if someone makes a bad change in life, then it affects everyone else. So like if people are happy with the government right now, one, it took a lot of hard work and dedication just to write a new government, but also it took a lot of time and work for everyone else to write a new government and form new ideas just every single generation.
And I believe that we are going in the right direction with our current government. We've signed a lot more peace treaties, and we haven't been in wars for a long time.
Feel free to finish if you had more to add.
Yeah.
Like we haven't been in wars for a long time. We've been in a peaceful state, and I feel like we are continuing to go that direction. So I don't believe that we will need a change in government.
Excellent. We thank you so much for your responses and answers to our questions. Seemed very thoughtful. Some time for some feedback, Ms. Gowan?
You have 10 minutes.
Very good. I'll take the liberty again of launching this. Again, I thought your written statements were excellent. Very thoughtful, well-reasoned. I like the references that you made to Locke and Jefferson himself. The clarity, Samuel, that you brought to this, that it has 4 parts to it. You laid it out nicely, and then your teammates used that comparison to add their responses to it as well. I thought it was really well done. Likewise, the responses to our questions, I thought were very thoughtful, except for the one question that brought forth no answer at all. And it's no issue other than, should you encounter a question like that in the next competition, feel free to ask the judge to rephrase it. That'll buy you some time to think through further and answer, and to, again, gather your thoughts to respond accordingly. I thought your responses to our questions improved with each of the questions that we asked. Katie, in fact, yours I thought was very thoughtful. That reflected on a yes and no answers. It's not simple. It's a yes and a no, and here's why. That was very well stated. And I think each one of you worked well as a team. You backed each other up, complimented each other, and yet I heard some distinctive answers too, which I thought was impressive. Let me back off and let the other judges speak.
I loved what you had to add. I loved talking about Locke. I mean, the whole basis of a lot of the arguments of our nation is this idea of natural rights philosophy versus classical republicanism, and I liked the dynamic you built there. I want to build upon what he said about if you don't have an answer to the question, I know what it feels like. It's a deer in the headlights. It's scary. My judge at the state competition when I was in high school was the national director for We the People, and that man has some crazy questions. He's a scary man, and I did not know what to say to him. But if you ask him to reword what they said, it helps a lot, and it gives you time to think. I think you did a great job overall, and good luck in your competition.
Yeah, I wanted to echo, you guys did a great job. I enjoyed your essay a lot. Case law got me really excited for law school and really inspired me for the future. So I was very impressed to hear Katz v. United States. And if you have any curiosity into any more of those kinds of court cases, go there, learn them, because when you can bring those out of the hat and say them out of nowhere, judges get really impressed. So I would like to encourage you to do that. Also, good references to John Locke. I would encourage you to look into some like classical republicanism, like Nathan mentioned, some of that philosophy, because that also shaped our Declaration and our Constitution. So if you can keep diving deeper into those two really contrastive ideas, that'll really build your arguments and build your essay. I thought you guys did a really great job responding. You rolled well with the format. Zoom is weird. There's awkward silences. There's Wi-Fi issues, all those things. But I thought you guys communicated well as a group. So, yeah, very impressed. Great job, guys.
It's very well done. We very much appreciate your participation.
Dr. Bartley, take it away.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Gowan. Indeed, I'm Dr. David Bartley from Indiana Wesleyan University, and I supervise the social studies education program. And I'm also a Ball State grad, which I share with one of our other judges. And in fact, I think you ought to meet the other two just now.
My name is Nathan Earl. I am that Ball State student he referred to. I'm a sophomore. I am studying social studies education. I was a We the People alum from 2017, did it my junior year in high school. Really excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Hi. Oh, am I on? Okay. I'm Abby Haynes. I'm a senior at Taylor University studying philosophy, political science, and economics. I hope to go to law school one day, and that kind of started for me in We the People. So I did We the People in 8th grade, and then when I was a senior in high school in 2016. So I've been in your shoes. I know what you're feeling. I know where you're at. And I'm excited to hear you guys' responses.
Excellent. This is Unit 3, which is going to be focusing on representation in Congress. Unfortunately, we're having to do this in the middle of a COVID crisis. And we thank you for your flexibility and willingness to accommodate this venue. It's new to all of us, and we'll all do our best to make it happen. What I'd like to do at this point is to share the question with you and invite each of the student panelists to share their written responses, after which we'll take turns offering some follow-up questions, and we're already interested in what you might say in response to those questions. Let me share the theme and topic for this evening. The framers put forth various plans to solve the problem of representation in Congress. What were the advantages and disadvantages of the Virginia plan? And likewise, what were the advantages and disadvantages of the New Jersey plan? And do you think the Great Compromise was a good solution to the problem of representation? Why or why not?
Before the Philadelphia Convention, James Madison came up with the Virginia Plan. In this plan, he proposed to have a strong national government and two governments. He also included what is now the federal system. The Virginia Plan also divided the government into three branches. In the plan, the number of representatives in each house was proportional. There was a lot of considerable debate at the convention about the different parts of the plan.
Some of the advantages of the Virginia Plan are a strong national government, two governments, and three branches of government, which is the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. The Virginia Plan also included two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Another advantage is that the number of representatives in each house would be proportional. Some of the disadvantages were that the Virginia Plan didn't distribute enough power to the smaller states. A major reason why some parts didn't pass. Another reason why the smaller states didn't like the Virginia Plan was that they wanted equal representation in both houses of Congress because without it, they were sure that the larger states would dominate over them.
The New Jersey Plan was led by William Paterson, and it followed the framework of the Articles of Confederation. The plan favored a weak national government and only called for one house of Congress. For representation, each state would have equal representation, which is when every state had to have the same amount of votes, which is very beneficial for the smaller states, but not so much for the bigger states, since they had a larger population. The New Jersey Plan proposed executive and judicial branches of government, but did not include the legislative branch.
One advantage of the New Jersey Plan is that it would help out the smaller states in the Union. It would allow the smaller states to be equal with all the other states instead of basing it off the population. Another advantage was that it would enforce the idea that people from any state could be prosecuted under state law because the state law would have more power. On the other hand, there were also some disadvantages of the New Jersey Plan. Smaller states having as much power as bigger states could also be a disadvantage. It is unfair to the bigger states if they have more people and smaller states have fewer people, which means fewer votes, that they should have the same amount of power. Another disadvantage is it would be very easy to pass laws. If only a majority of the people agreed with it, it would still be possible to pass that law with all the states having the same amount of power.
We think that the Great Compromise was a good solution to the problem of representation. We believe that proportional representation is better than equal representation because even though it says that it would be equal representation, the bigger the state, the less representation you would have because you would have to be equal with the smaller states. We also believe that having two houses of Congress is better than only one because the two houses can keep each other in check and they cannot overpower each other. They also include checks and balances within the compromise. In the Senate, the smaller states could check the large states by changing or rejecting taxes and spending bills passed in the House. One time when a compromise was needed but couldn't be made was during the Civil War. One thing that created tension between the North and South was the Fugitive Slave Act, which the North strongly disagreed with because it stirred their emotions and sparked hostile feelings towards slavery. Another disagreement that created tension between the North and South states was that the South wanted slavery to expand to the Western territories, while the North was committed to keeping them open to white labor only. Over a few years, there were times when the states could have made compromise but didn't because one side wasn't willing to make the sacrifices that came with it. Thank you for listening to our essay.
Excellent. Jess, could I ask you to adjust your camera a little bit? Pull it down for us. There we go. Just wanted to see you. Thank you very much. I appreciated those responses. Excellent. Let me turn to the other judges and ask if there are any follow-up questions.
Go
ahead.
Okay. So the Great Compromise is obviously they were going to try to benefit each other, find a middle ground there. But at the end of the day, it's probably benefiting someone more. And do you think the Great Compromise ended up benefiting the small states or the larger states more?
I think it helped the larger states more because it included like the two houses of representation, the two houses in Congress, which they wanted, and yeah.
Any other response to that question? Okay.
Nathan took my question, so I'll pass it to you, Dr. Bartley, while I think of
Oh,
one.
okay, very good. It's very interesting to me that a great compromise was reached, and I'm kind of curious what you think. In fact, does compromise still exist today within our governing system?
I do not think that there is still compromise because today the Republican and Democratic sides are fighting against each other so much, and they're always at each other's throats. So I don't believe that there is a compromise between them, and I think that it would be very hard to try to create a compromise between them because they're always at each other's throats.
Interesting. Let me ask a similar question then. Do we still have any form of equal representation today? Part of the compromise here relates to the New Jersey plan having equality among the states. Do we still have that in any form today?
Talked about how we have two parts of the legislature. What's the other part of the legislature? There's equal representation, I think, what we're trying to get at in the Senate. Okay.
I have a question. Oh,
Can you please repeat the question?
I was just wondering if we have any form of equal representation today. And I think Nathan alluded to it in that we have a two-chamber legislature. And perhaps one or the other reflects that equality of representation.
So I'm gonna ask a question back before.
Go ahead.
So when you were talking about compromise, you alluded to in your essay how hard it was for them to come to this compromise. And then it's difficult for us to come to compromise today and policies and what's going on in the world. What do you think are some good ways that people can come to compromises in today's world?
Any thoughts? Let me try this then. You've looked through both the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan. You yourself, which one did you like the better? I'm wondering if you were a delegate at the convention, which side you would pick, which one you'd prefer.
I would prefer parts of each because I believe that there should be two houses in Congress, but I also and I also believe that having equal representation is good, but it also is kind of unfair for some of the larger states. And yeah.
I agree with Sophie.
What were some arguments the smaller states made for the New Jersey plan?
I think Ms. Gowan is trying to get our attention.
Good.
Well, we want to thank you for your participation this evening. Interesting topic, and it's tough to wrestle with. It's thought-provoking, and especially when you try to apply it to our current governing system. I thought you were quite right to note that we seem to have lost our sense of compromise. Indeed, as you responded to an earlier question, the lack of compromise is very evident in our current politics and on Capitol Hill. I think you caught that quite right. Your written response was quite good. We enjoyed hearing your thoughts, very well laid out, very provoking, and we can appreciate how much time you spent in creating those things. I'll yield to my other judges.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting topic. I mean, it was one of the main things, talked about when they were going to build this new government. How are we going to represent the people? And the Great Compromise is, probably the biggest thing that happened there. I loved your written response. Obviously, we were kind of left wanting in the Q&A, but these were some tough questions. I mean, if I was in your shoes, it's not easy, especially coming up with stuff on the spot there. And we're going to put stuff in the comments that'll hopefully help you out for competition. Wish you guys luck. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, I just echo what's been said before. Your written response was really good. Really appreciated some of the specifics that you threw in there, some of the more logistical ways that our government works and the ways that they wrestled towards creating this compromise. And yeah, I think just we want to hear what you have to say. We really are. We're here for you. We really care about your perspectives and your opinions, and we believe that you have really good things to say and things to bring to this world. And so, just nudge it on and keep up. Keep brave. I know it's really scary. I've been in your shoes. The scariness of it is, it's hard when you have people in front of you who you think know more than you. So I just encourage you to be brave and tell us what you have to say, because we really believe that you have good things to say. All in all, I thought you guys did a great job, and I'm really excited for you guys as you go on to competition.
I would share that. I thought your strategy was interesting in how that you handled the written responses, not just your predictable one after the other. You actually tag teamed nicely back and forth. I thought that was well planned, and I think it came across quite well. It kept us wondering who's going to speak next, and that kept our attention even higher than it would have been. You answered thoroughly in terms of addressing the Virginia plan and New Jersey plan. You clearly stated advantages, disadvantages, and it actually prompted some of our questions that would take it a step further. You may want to consider elaborating on those very same points that you're sharing as written responses, anticipating some of the questions, just like we tried to share with you here. Not that our questions were all that great. We can always improve on that, the questioning side as well as the answering side. But I thought you did quite well. Any other thoughts from the judges?
This was a hard one to come up with questions for. So
yeah, it was.
Can continue to be, I would just encourage you to look into more of those logistics of what the plan actually is, and be willing to expand on that, because this question is less subjective in that there can be lots of ranges of answers, and it's a little bit more exact. So if you can keep digging into what those advantages, disadvantages are, and be willing to maybe apply them to modern day, that would be really good strategy for taking on competition.
It's very predictable that you'll be asked how your question or theme applies to today. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion that a judge will yield to that possible follow-up question, just to give you some prompts to think about.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to get started with the Unit 4 hearing for R.J. Baskett Middle School's We the People, the Citizen, and the Constitution practice hearing. I'm going to unmute our two judges for just a moment here, and then I'll let them control their own microphones. We are going to introduce ourselves to you, and then we will allow you to introduce yourselves to us. I am Adam Williamson. I'm the high school We the People coach. I'm also the coordinator for Mississinawa for the We the People program, and I've taught the program for 14 years. Mr. Colvin?
Hi, I'm Josh Colvin. I'm most famously known as Mrs. Colvin's husband, but also the former teacher at R.J. Baskett and a former assistant principal at Riverview. And I think when you guys were maybe second or third grade, because so your names look familiar and faces look familiar. But now I currently work in admissions at Indiana University Kokomo, and I also am the assistant cross-country and track coach at Indiana University Kokomo.
Please introduce
All
yourself.
right.
Mr. Sample, go ahead.
Mr. Sample. Hey guys, I'm Paxton Sample, or Mr. Sample. I was a We the People student, 3 years ago. And this will be my third year judging the competition. So I'm super excited to see what you guys are here to present.
Okay, go ahead and introduce yourselves, guys.
I'm Keontae Woods, and I'm in the 8th grade.
I'm Grady Schnapp, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Timothy Hawk, and I'm in 8th grade, and Miss Colvin is our teacher.
Great. Okay, well, let's get started. You are the Unit 4 panel, right? Okay, good. So your question today is on political parties. Political parties are an important part of our political system today, yet they're not mentioned in the Constitution. Why did the framers fear political parties? Why and how did political parties develop? And do political parties play a useful role today? Why or why not? You may begin.
The framers feared political parties because of factions. They feared the strongest faction would end up controlling the government. There started to become lots of problems, and George Washington and his advisors tried to fix them. When they did, there were lots of disagreements, which rose to political parties. Say you were the coach of the football team with 3 other coaches. If the coaches all made a play, including you, and you showed this play to the team, and 6 or 7 of them disagreed, and they had a different opinion on the play than everyone else. So the players would be the political party, and you and everyone else would be the government. The disagreements between the team, coaches, and players created the, in quotation, political parties. With this, it would fear you and the other coaches, because with disagreements, the team could go down and not play well, and everything could go bad. Just like in government, with these disagreements, it could make the government do poorly and could go downhill, messing everything up they just created. It also turned very vicious with fighting included. The government didn't want to create crippling dissension within their political system.
Political parties are very important to society today. They came about back when the Constitution was written and agreed on. They were started by the Federalist people who supported ratifying the Constitution and the Anti-Federalist people who opposed ratifying the Constitution. Political parties were created because of a disagreement between the two groups, causing them to separate and try to convince others to think what they think. Now, it wasn't electing a president rather than choosing whether the Constitution is good or not. Political parties made a lot of people happy because it had a person to represent your ideas. If it were only one idea or one group, not everyone would agree, which could lead to arguments or more. But like what George Washington said, be careful of political parties. These political parties are becoming unnecessarily dangerous for saying what you believe. This isn't an issue because everyone has the right of freedom of speech and the right to say what they believe.
Political parties are extremely useful in our government today. But before I dive into political parties and their uses, we need a basic understanding of what political parties are. Political parties are groups where each side wants to get what they believe is needed. So if a political party is sending someone to run for office, president, governor, senator, etc., then that person believes what their party believes. There are two main parties in government, the Republicans and the Democrats. One of the things the Republicans believe in is the income tax system. They think it is fair to the people who create jobs and wealth. The Democrats, on the other hand, believe in equality for all. They think that everyone is equal and no one should be discriminated for what they believe in or who they are. Now, this is not to say that all Republicans don't believe in these things, but it is something associated with the Democratic Party. Now that we know what political parties are, we can fully understand how political parties are used in modern day. Political parties represent different groups of interest. If America as a whole is going through something, then the people are going to need a certain ideology to get them through this. In response, the different parties will send a nominee for an open political position. The people will vote, usually with whatever party they are associated with, but there are exceptions, for whoever they think is best for the time that they are in. The political parties will want to win the votes of not just the people in their party, but the people in the other party too. Political parties bring people with similar ideologies together in order to get things done in the interest of the people, and that is very important to our nation. Thank you, judges. We are now ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a few follow-up questions for you here. If the framers were so afraid of political parties, why do you think they didn't put something in the Constitution to prevent them from forming in the first place?
I think that they didn't do that because I think that they believe that that political parties could lead to some good. They definitely said like you need to be careful of them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad. They have the potential to be bad. And so they just kind of left a neutral position on political parties and left that for the future citizens of the United States to decide whether that is good. So.
As Drew said, I also agree with him that they probably left that because sometimes, like maybe it would open up their eyes for different opinions, just as the political parties had, and that's why they probably didn't put that in the Constitution.
Like what George Washington quoted when he said we need to be careful of political parties because it could be dangerous.
If we were a nation of only one political party, would that be a problem? Why or why not?
I think it would be a problem because there are a lot of people that have a lot of different ideas. And so if you have one idea with a lot of different people, that's not going to go so well as to if you have a lot of people and a lot of different ideas.
Again, just as Grady said, and also on top of that, political parties were made because of disagreements out of all in one, and this would just create more disagreements just as it did before, which would end up creating more anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be hard if you only had one political party to represent the interests of every single citizen of the United States. You know, that's a lot of people. So it's a good thing to have multiple so that everybody's interests are represented. And there's no like one really ideology in the entire that always is in the government.
So I have a question. You guys mentioned a handful of times how many people there are in the U.S. and how different opinions or how different the opinions are. Do you think that two political parties that we have now, do you think the two is an adequate number, or do you think perhaps we should have more than that?
This is maybe personally, but I think probably yes, we should have more, because in those two political parties, there's probably still a lot of disagreements because a lot of people have different opinions and they come from a different place and they see things differently than everybody in that party, which will create even more disagreement.
To add on to what Keontae said, two won't be enough for the millions of ideas that there are in the country. Like, there are so many arguments about how both are bad, and how, like, that's why we have the third party for people that don't agree with, like, the main two Democratic and Republican parties.
Yeah, so there are the two main parties, Republican, Democrat, but I'm pretty sure there are several minor parties like the Green Party and shoot, that's the only one that comes to my head. But I know there are several more that to represent other people's interests. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that the parties, you already mentioned the two parties we have today, the Democrats and the Republicans. Do you think that they help us get things done in government more efficiently? Or do you think that they're more of a hindrance to getting things done in government today?
I think they definitely help things along because they have their ideologies, and in different times there are going to be different styles of leading that are going to be needed to get the country through and prosper. So having those two main, it'll give some options on the table for a leadership choice that will best fit for the time that they're in.
To me, it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing because, like, the Democrats can have really good ideas and some could be bad, and the Republicans, for the ones that are bad, and the Democrats, they could have some really good ones for that too. So it influences it, like it does good, and sometimes it will do bad for some people, and just like in their opinion, depends on the person half the time.
Time for one more, Mr. Williamson.
Okay, I think we're out. So well done, gentlemen. We're going to look over our notes real quick, and we're going to give you some feedback on how you did tonight. So did it go fast? It usually does go faster than you think it will. So, okay, my feedback for you is, first of all, I absolutely loved your responsiveness. Nobody was kind of hanging back and letting anybody else take the spotlight, and that's great. So that kind of teamwork is going to serve you very well in competition next week. Is it next Friday? Is that right? I think that's what Mrs. Colvin said. So, well done there. If I could give you a suggestion for improvement, it would be to provide some more specific examples to jump in there and really kind of get your ideas across. Tim, you were really kind of dancing along that area there. You were really trying to come up with something specific to give us, and I push you guys to pay close attention to the news and close attention to current events so that you've got something you can throw out there and really let the judges sink their teeth into. But overall, I was impressed. Mr. Colvin?
I'm going to go along with what Mr. Williamson said. Pretty impressed what you guys learned, because anytime I judge these competitions, I haven't in a few years, but but every time I do, I kind of learn something myself. So you guys are sitting there and you're in 8th grade and you're teaching old man like me some stuff that I didn't necessarily know. And so that's always impressive. I guess aesthetically, what I would say, and what I mean by aesthetically is when you are presenting information, if we were in person, because that's all I know besides this. You know, this is the first time in a Zoom in this situation, but I know we always kind of talk about proper posture, trying to look like you are talking to people. You guys might maybe want to work on that. If you ever watch newscasters, it looks like they're looking at the camera, and all of you, when you were giving your presentations, you were kind of looking down at your paper. And so I don't know, Mr. Williamson, if that's something they should be working on, but overall, I think you answered your questions very clearly. And I like the examples that you gave. I think Tim, I think you explained the political parties, I think, pretty well overall, and kind of what they stand for generally and what they represent. And Grady, I'm trying to think, and I can't read my own writing. You use your example of George Washington, and I think what that does for somebody, like say your parents, if they're in the audience, right? That's going to catch their ear, I think, because they know George Washington. They may not know exactly everything you know, because again, we're all, you're teaching us a lot of this stuff. But I think when you say George Washington, Keontae, when you kind of compare that to football, I think that also gets people's attention, and I think you use that really eloquently, how you explain comparing, all of this, our government, to a football team. I liked it myself, just from a personal aspect as well. So great job, guys.
Here we go. Yeah. So the first thing that I want to say for my feedback is I'm just generally a big fan of using analogies like you did right at the beginning of your prepared speech, comparing political parties to something that everybody knows about. I know Mr. Colvin, I'm sure, was kind of smiling in his chair because he's a football guy, but I know that the ability to translate something that's maybe a little more complex, like political parties, which is by no means an easy topic to talk about, to football, which is something that a lot of people really understand. That's really cool to be able to understand a topic so well that you can translate it for various people. I know Mr. Williamson said, good job, everybody speaking. I thought that was super cool that you guys, you all had different opinions and you guys were all willing to kind of piggyback off of one another. But then, like Mr. Williamson said again, just have some historical references, have some modern day references just in your back pocket in case you need to pull that out. When you're talking about political parties, for question 3, have a few political parties from the past in your back pocket, have a few political parties from the future, or from not the future, but from right now in your pocket. Historically, you talk about like the Whigs, you can talk about the Greenbacks, you can talk about the Know Nothing Party, the Prohibition Party. Pick one or two of those each and know about where it was, and for now, pick a political party and know a little bit about it, because I think that'll give you guys some really cool ammunition when you guys are doing Q&As. If you throw the Know Nothing Party at a judge, they're going to be so impressed. They are going to be so impressed. So that's just something to think about as you guys go in. You don't have to memorize a whole history timeline, but pick one thing and just know it real well, and you can blow some people's minds if you can get it in there. But good job, yeah, overall, fantastic.
All right. Well, that brings us to a close. We will get scores to you. We'll send them to Mrs. Colvin, so hopefully you'll have scores by Monday. Good job, guys. We're going to let you waltz out of the room and tell Unit 5 to go ahead and get logged on as soon as they're ready. Have a good night. Welcome, everyone, to our Unit 5 hearing for R.J. Baskett's We the People, the Citizen, and the Constitution Practice Hearing Night. We are going to introduce ourselves as the judges, and then students will allow you to introduce yourselves and your teacher. I'll start. I am Mr. Williamson. I am the high school We the People coach, and I'm also the coordinator for the program for the district, Mississinawa. And I've taught We the People for 14 years. Mr. Colvin?
Hi, I'm Josh Colvin, and I'm most famously known as Mrs. Colvin's husband. But I'm also a former teacher at RJ Baskett. I taught social studies for several years. And I was an administrator, assistant principal at both RJB and at Northview. So you guys look familiar. I think I was probably there around maybe your third, fourth, fifth grade years. But now I currently work at Indiana University Kokomo in admissions, and I'm also the assistant cross country and track coach there as well.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Paxton Sample. I am a junior at Purdue University. I am a third-year alum from the We the People program at the high school. So I was a student in 2017. This will be my third year out, and then this will also be my third year judging. I study pharmaceutical science at Purdue, which is very different than We the People. But I still try to keep up, and I'm super excited to hear what you guys are going to present to us. So good luck.
Okay, will you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Katie Wardinger. I'm an 8th grade student at RJ Baskett Middle School.
Hi, I'm Jackson Ott, and I go to RJ Baskett.
Hey, I'm Samuel Gonzalez. I'm an 8th grader at RJ Baskett, and our teacher is Mrs. Colvin.
Great. Okay, well, let's get started. So this is the Unit 5 panel, and your question today is about the First Amendment's guarantee of free speech. The First Amendment states that laws shall not be passed that abridge the freedom of speech. Why did the founders think that freedom of speech was so important? Do you believe there are times when freedom of expression should be limited? Explain your response. And should a public speaker who calls for a violent action be protected by the First Amendment, whereas an audience member who performs the action can be sent to prison? Why or why not? You may begin.
The founders thought that in their rights there should be some limitations, but when coming up with those limits was not very easy because the founders needed to see what people could say and express their ideas without endangering other American citizens. For instance, if someone were to shout fire in a public place, there 100% would need to be repercussions for his or her action, even if there is freedom of expression. The founders thought that freedom of expression was very important because they thought that American citizens should be able to express themselves for a couple of reasons. One reason was that since the colonists were going to be a crucial part of the presidential election every 4 years, their opinions were going to be crucial when picking a new president. Another reason is that the founders thought that freedom of expression was so important for the individual development of human dignity. And the reason for this was for individual development and human dignity was because they thought that expression was going to be important for the growth, also for the rights for a citizen to present themselves and their ideas to consider their point of view. What came with this was that people could feel like they were being heard and hear what other people were thinking and their opinions. While there were some reasons to enhance the lives of the American citizens or at least either have a huge advantage while picking the next president.
We believe that freedom of speech and freedom of expression is one of the most important rights for the American citizen. We believe that there is only one instance where this right should be limited. For example, if two people get in a fight and they hate each other, and one person goes on a rant of lies on the internet and basically ruins the other person's life. This isn't fair for the person that the other person is going off on because they are all lies. If people start believing the lies, then the person that is being posted about has to explain to everyone about how it is fake and the whole situation is toxic. It should be limited by punishment such as short-term jail time or fines. We believe this is the only time freedom of speech should be limited. We believe that freedom of speech should be one of the most coveted rights for the American citizen. We believe that if the government controls what we say and talk about, then they control our lives. We believe that in the instance where someone ruins someone else's life by posting lies about
them, then the government should stop them and punish them accordingly. For example, Brandenburg versus Ohio, this case ruled that speech can be limited if it's directed at a lawless action. I believe that the ruling of this case is not to limit the speech of citizens, but is for protection over them.
We believe that the First Amendment has a very important role in our lives. A speaker uses the First Amendment whenever he or she is speaking. If a speaker calls for violent action, then he should be protected because of the First Amendment. While it depends on the person speaking and the reason they are calling that action, we think that it depends on what group of people and the action behind what the speaker is saying. We think that the speaker should be protected by freedom of speech, but if he is threatening someone or something, then he should be punished because that is the exception to freedom of speech. We also think that if an audience member commits the violent action, then they should be punished depending on what action they do. For example, in Tinker v. Demois, the Supreme Court case was a court case that involved freedom of speech and expression. The students tried to do something and the principal thought it would disrupt the students' learning. It was a 7-2 decision on the students and the principal that made a new adjustment to the school. The new thing they made was that freedom of speech still applies to students, even if it disrupts the learning environment. Thank you for hearing us. We are now ready for your questions.
Okay, in perfect timing, even though I didn't held up the yellow sign, you guys were right on the mark, so good work. We do have some follow-up questions we want to ask you, and so I'll get started. So in your prepared statement, you mentioned that a person who calls for violent action should be protected by freedom of speech unless they were threatening something or someone. So, that can be a really fine line, right? So what would you count as a threat against someone? And what would you count as just calling for violent action? Like, where's the difference between those two?
I believe that the difference between those two is that if somebody is, let's say, going to go hurt somebody, or somebody told them to do something and it's going to harm others, then that should be punishable, because sure, someone told them to do it, but that doesn't mean that they were forced to, and it also doesn't mean that they had to. This person could have been hurting so many people, and sure, they could say, oh yeah, it was freedom of expression. Freedom of expression does not mean that you can harm somebody or in an event multiple people.
Adding on to what Katie said, I think the line would be set between, for example, a threat would be, for example, like somebody's telling someone else that they were going to hurt them, where something that wouldn't be a threat would be somebody, for example, in news, like writing a newspaper or something, saying we need a protest against this, and if they say it has to be violent, then I guess that's what they mean, but it is not. I don't believe it can be counted as a threat, as it doesn't really specify who they're going against or if they're going to hurt them or not. They just say they think there needs to be a violent action done.
I believe that like the Brandenburg versus Ohio case, it says that the First Amendment doesn't apply to a lawless. If someone is talking about a lawless action, then the First Amendment doesn't protect that, basically. So what I'm saying, a threat is a lawless thing. So I think that the First Amendment should protect the threat.
So I want to ask a specific question, kind of right along the lines of what you guys are talking about. Like, what is the difference between freedom of speech and, where is that line of it? I have a right to say what I want, but when is that going to end up becoming an issue, a problem for other people, whether it's a violent act or threat of violent act. But pretty simple here. Should it be lawful to put information on the internet about how to make a bomb? Why or why not?
I don't believe that that should be able to put on the internet, because there are kids out there who like take their parents' phones while their parents are working or something, and they can like be like, oh yeah, we have this stuff, but somebody put instructions onto the internet and posted, and basically is letting kids know, here's how you make a bomb. They're not telling them what that bomb can do, and little kids don't know what that kind of destruction a bomb can make. So they might just make it thinking it's a fun little craft, and then once they set it off, who knows what mass destruction they've caused.
I disagree with Katie, because if someone puts a bomb on the internet and instructions how to build a bomb, they wouldn't be like telling another person to go bomb a school or something. They're putting that on the internet because they want to show people their instructions, so that if they want to go, like for example, people go out in the back and shoot guns all the time. What would be the difference between that and going out and exploding stuff in their backyard all the time, I guess? But I feel like the person that puts that on the internet should be punished for what the person that's building the bomb and doing the action is.
Jackson, let me jump in there. If let's say someone put instructions for how to build a bomb online, and then said, and I think you should go use this in a public place, would you restrict it then?
In that case, yes. That's a hard question. I feel like yes, it should be restricted, because that person is telling another person to go use that in a public place, not just putting it on there. So it's different from what the other thing was. It's slightly different.
I do think that there should have been repercussions, because a certain person's not saying, here's how you do this, now go to this place and do it right here, but they're implying that, hey, you should do this, you should set it off, not just make it, just go make it and then set it off. That's what they're implying when they're saying you should try this. It's like when they say don't try this at home, because it's most likely either a stupid action that no one should try, or they're making sure kids don't want to try it because it's dangerous. So if they're saying you should try this, then kids are going to think it's a good idea. People are going to think that's a good idea.
I kind of, for both points, I kind of go along a bit with Katie and a bit with Jackson at the same time. I think if that person was putting online, then they obviously know what they're doing. And the kid or the person who's going to be doing it, they should have at least a small idea of what they're building, because it's obviously going to say, hey, this is how you build a bomb or whatever. And the materials wouldn't really, I don't believe, would be something you can find every day. So little kids wouldn't be able to really do anything with that. But yes, going along with that question, I don't believe, I mean, there are certain guidelines for like what should go on there, but I think they should be punished either way, because they're setting information on like something that could possibly harm others. And so that should most likely be restricted. However, in some cases, like in case it's for military use or something, then it should not be allowed. Like it should be allowed.
All right, that's time, and poor Mr. Sample didn't get to ask a question. Sorry about that.
And he had a good question.
He did.
Oh,
Yeah.
he did.
Well, you know what? We've got a few, so let's. I'll extend this another minute, Mr. Sample. Go ahead.
Oh wow! All right. So my question. This is something that we talked about back when I was in We the People, and so I'm kind of interested to see what you guys think. It's right along the lines. A couple of years back, there was a big ordeal about whether or not it's okay to burn the American flag. What do you guys think? Do you guys think it's okay to burn the American flag? Is that okay? Is that protected, or should we definitely not do that?
I think that it very much, like the other questions, it very much depends what the reason is. Because if you're burning the American flag because you disagree with its stand, like not just disagree, because you don't like what it represents, I guess, then you should like not be able to burn it, because if you have it, you're already supporting it, and like if you're only having it to burn it, then it's just unacceptable at that point, I think. But if you're like burning it because like you want to get a new one and yours has holes or something, you don't know how to dispose of it, then I guess that's fine in a way. But if it's with the malicious intentions, then yes, it should definitely not be allowed.
I don't think that it should be allowed, just because I know a lot of people who were in the military and how like much they respect the American flag, because they're setting their lives at risk protecting America, and the way we honor that is with the American flag. So if somebody's trying to burn it, that's just disrespectful to not only like everyone who's an American citizen because they're like burning it, but to other people as well.
I agree with Katie, because I have like a bunch of family members that have been in the military, and they're like so proud to be an American, and like they love the flag, and they honor it and stuff. And if you burn the flag, that's just like a disrespectful sign to all the people that fought for you and like sacrificed things for you and protects you. And so I feel like that should be good.
Okay. Solid question there, Mr. Sample. Age-old question. Okay, we're going to give you some feedback now on how we think you did. So first of all, I want to say good job keeping your cool. This isn't an easy question to answer. And honestly, it's a question that can get under people's skin. We don't like the idea of people taking away our rights. Americans are really, really sort of feisty about, well, don't tell me what I can't say, right? And so that, I think you did a really nice job with it. I laid a little bit of a trap for you guys. I think Mr. Sample knows what I did to you. So you, in your statement and in your Q&A, you guys told us that you thought that a person calling for violent action should be protected. And then we got into the question about the bomb making. And I said, well, what happens if the person who gives the instructions for making the bomb includes a message on there that says, oh, I think you should go use it? And your group's response was, well, no, that's not okay. The problem is those are contradictory, right? Like at the beginning, you told me that they should be protected, but then you decided, and well, in this case, they shouldn't be. And I think if anything, what you need to take away from that is these issues are super complicated, and oftentimes we have to look at them on a case-by-case basis. Even if we make the same decision, no, that's not okay, every single time, we have to slow down, look at all the facts, and consider what the situation is before we jump to a conclusion. And that's what the courts do. And it's the kind of thinking that you guys are getting into now. So I applaud you on thinking outside the box and really kind of reasoning through that. And I apologize for laying a trap for you. Mr. Colvin?
That's kind of why I wanted to ask that question, because I wanted to hear the opinion. I'm glad that Mr. Williamson threw that in there. Hey, now go do this, right? Because that it's freedom of speech is something that anytime you see somebody, I feel like they're in court or they're getting questioned by the police or whatever, and they always want to throw out, well, I can say this because I'm allowed to. It's like, at what point do we have to say, that line is drawn? And it's tough. And going case by case is certainly one of those things. The example I used to use, and Katie, you kind of you said something about, yelling fire. And it's like, okay, so what if I wanted to go to a movie theater and I would yell, hey, there's a fire, when there really isn't, right? And people can get into a panic. They're in a crowded movie theater in a non-COVID year, right? And then people get hurt, like they're running for the exit because they think there's a fire and they get hurt. Am I responsible? Should I be held responsible? Or all I can say is, well, I'm allowed to say that. I can do it. Then I should not be in trouble. And so it's even as simple as that. And of course, we're talking about bombs, and we're talking about some burning the flag or kneeling for the national anthem. I mean, these are some of the big things that are going on in the country right now. And it's I don't know that there's ever a 100% right answer. I think in the founders, when they wrote this amendment, I think their intentions were good. But then there's always these things. The founders probably back then never thought about making a bomb because they didn't really have. I mean, I guess they had some things, but maybe they didn't think about a flag burning because it was such a new country. Maybe everybody was proud, right? So, I think their intentions were good, but it's more of looking at every single thing base by base. So, Katie, I like what you said. You said it's citizens should have freedom of speech because it allows for their individual development for human dignity. I really like that, and I always said in the other groups, and I say it every time I do these judge, I always learn something, and I thought that was something that's great. I'm gonna try to kind of put that in my brain and maybe use that if you don't mind. I'm gonna plagiarize it a little bit, and I don't know where you got it from, but I'm gonna try to use that because that's something I want to be able to tell people as well. In whatever situation I'm in. And then Jackson and Samuel, I like when you guys use court cases as examples. That's pretty powerful. I mean, I remember being in college and I was getting my master's degree and learning about school law. And I learned a bunch about some different court cases, and you start quoting court cases. And number one, it sounds like you kind of know what you're talking about. And number two, that holds up. I mean, that holds water more than you think. So, I really liked. It was impressed that both of you were able to use the couple different court cases that you mentioned to support what you were saying. So great job, guys.
Yeah. So let me just real fast piggyback off of Mr. Colvin's court cases. I think that's super cool that you guys are able to pull from historical contexts and understand kind of. These are big decisions that a large branch of our government is making, and the ability to draw information from that and draw experience from, decisions that have already been made is very, very cool to support the arguments that you have yourselves. Like Mr. Williamson was saying, we've got a whole branch of government that's darn near dedicated to this topic, which is, where's the line? What we have this very purposefully vague, when the founders were writing the Constitution, they knew they couldn't possibly, know it was going to happen in 2020. Like, no, not a single one of them could have predicted what technological advances have come about. They left it vague on purpose. And so we, a couple hundred years later, we have to figure out how to draw that line. And that's a big deal that you guys are starting to learn how to interpret and to try to find where's the line, what's okay, what isn't okay. And, frankly, there is no right or wrong answer. As long as you guys come up with this opinion, as long as you guys have information, you guys can back it up with sound logic. When it comes down to it, I mean, we've got, brilliant minds on the Supreme Court, and they don't always agree with one another. Very, very rarely do we get everybody agreeing on the same thing. You've always got, well, not always, you've frequently got dissenting opinions. You've got, the Supreme Court justices that are disagreeing with one another. So you're not at any point going to find a right answer to any of these big, vague, ambiguous questions that are getting asked. So kudos to you guys for sticking to your guns and doing what you believe is okay. Just make sure that you've got a good foundation for what you believe is right and what you believe is wrong. And as long as you've got logic to back that up, good job, guys. You keep on where you're going. have a good foundation, pull from those court cases, get a foundational understanding, and stick to your guns. You'll do just fine.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Unit 6 hearing for R.J. Baskett's We the People, the Citizen, and the Constitution practice hearing. We judges are going to introduce ourselves, and then we will invite you students to introduce yourselves. I'll start. My name is Adam Williamson. I'm the high school We the People coach. I'm also the coordinator for Mississinawa Schools for this program, and I've taught We the People for 14 years. Mr. Colvin?
Hi, I'm Josh Colvin, and most famously known as Mrs. Colvin's husband, but also was a teacher at R.J. Baskett for several years in social studies, and was also assistant principal at Northview for a few years when you guys were there. So I still remember names and faces for sure, so it's nice to see all of you. But currently I work at Indiana University Kokomo in the admissions office, and I'm the assistant cross-country and track coach there as well.
All right. Hey, guys. My name is Paxton Sample. I am a third-year alum for We the People. This will be my third year out, and my third year judging as well. I'm currently a student at Purdue University, my junior year, and I'm studying pharmaceutical science, which is very much not We the People, but still here, still love it. So I'm excited. I'm ready to hear what you guys are going to present.
Would you please introduce yourselves?
My name is Sophie Joseph. I'm an 8th grader at RJB.
Hi, my name is Drew, and I'm an 8th grader at RGB.
Hi, my name is Madeline, and I'm an 8th grader at RGB.
Okay, well, let's get started. So just a reminder to our judges, this is the Unit 6 panel. We're doing this out of order. So your question, Unit 6, is: many people believe that an informed citizenry is essential if democracy is to work. Should people be required to pass periodic citizenship tests to maintain their citizenship? Why or why not? And would you favor requiring literacy tests, fairly administered, before allowing citizens to vote? Why or why not? You may begin.
I do not think that people should be required to pass periodic citizenship tests to maintain their citizenship, because if you pass the test once, there's no need to take it again. The test for citizenship is all about understanding the history and the Constitution of the U.S., and it also tests to see if one can communicate well with other people using English. If you are able to communicate well in English and pass other series of questions, for example, what the legal system is, what the 3 branches of government are and their functions, this allows you to become a citizen. There is no reason to take periodic citizenships on the same content because it will not change unless new laws or rules are created. The true test of citizenship is how well a person participates in exercising his or her rights as an American citizen. Also, the person taking the test already has 2 opportunities to pass the test. According to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Handbook, USCIS will give you a second opportunity to pass any failed portion of the citizenship test, once on your first interview and a second time on your re-interview. Another reason why having periodic citizenship tests is unnecessary is that to be able to apply to take the test, you have to pay $725, and it also isn't refundable. If you have to take periodic citizenship tests, people can start to lose money because you have to send an application each time to take the test. Imagine trying to get your application through each year to take the test. In 10 years, you would have spent $7,250 so that you could take the test. And the government might not even take your application. Some people cannot afford to do that. I also think that it isn't fair that only the people from different countries that want to live, stay, and have rights in America have to take the test. Like Hendy Lamar said, experts always know everything but the fine points. When I took my citizenship exams, no one there knew how the White House came to be called the White House. What I believe this quote was saying is that immigrants that are wanting to become American citizens have to learn more about America than natural-born Americans so that they can become citizens of the U.S.
I personally think that people should have to pass periodic citizenship tests in order to maintain their citizenship. This is so that if someone forgets something, the government knows if they need to have a checkup in order to preserve peace and order. For example, if someone's just taken out of their home for no reason at all, that person could have forgotten his privilege, writ of habeas corpus. Therefore, that person might go through this whole ordeal, even though it could have been avoided if the person being arrested had remembered his or her rights. If you don't know all your rights, there's a good chance that you won't pass the citizenship test. You could then learn about them and take the test again within the allotted time frame. Now, it wouldn't have to be an extremely regular basis, but in the many years that a lot of people have lived as a citizen, it is possible to forget something. So if you were to take the naturalization test every 10 years, it wouldn't take a bunch of time or money in the grand scheme of things. When the citizenship test was first introduced, it was administered orally, and the results lacked uniformity. This meant that some people with the same levels of understanding the U.S. Constitution and history were given different results in whether or not they became a citizen. If everyone took the naturalization test every 10 years, everyone would always have an equal understanding of the history of the United States.
Administered literacy tests before allowing citizens to vote. In America, there are several civic responsibilities of a citizen. Some of these include being informed about public issues, keeping watch of political leaders, and interfering if they abuse their power, paying taxes, voting, and deciding how to vote. In order to do these things, our citizens need to be properly educated. Even having completed a high school education, most U.S. citizens are not properly educated on American government and politics. If a citizen is able to pass a literacy test, then they are more likely educated enough to vote. If the U.S. were to require a literacy test before voting, U.S. citizens will be more likely to elect someone who's properly educated and trained in business, trade, and guidance. For example, in the U.S., the people with an education receive a higher pay than those without. The same thing should apply to the elections. People with an education should be more worthy of voting, rather than those who are not. Along with requiring citizens to pass literacy tests,
Okay, so that's time. So that'll be one of the pieces of feedback we'll give you is to cut down on your prepared statement before competition day next week. We're going to start giving you some follow-up questions here, and I'll start. So, do you think that the ability to read and write, as you mentioned, Madeline, you said that people should have to take the literacy test in order to be able to vote. So do you think the ability to read and write should be necessary to vote? Or do you think that as long as you know it, you shouldn't have to be able to read and write it?
I think that you should not have to pass the literacy test to be able to vote because as an American, we have rights to vote. So I don't think that it should be required to take the literacy test.
I disagree with Sophie because I think that there can be certain exceptions to people who have to pass the literacy test, such as someone who is blind or has a disability. If they're able to understand the material and have a disability that can prevent them from reading and writing, I think that is a completely different story than if someone who has had the opportunities to learn how to read and write in order to pass the citizenship test. Literacy test.
Let me jump in with a little quick follow-up there. If a person is, let's say, blind, so they can't read, but we can provide the questions in Braille, would you expect them to be able to read by Braille?
Yes, I think that if they can understand the material, then I think that that would be a worthy result of them being able to vote.
Yes, I also agree that if they can read Braille, then they should be allowed to vote.
Would you deny them the right to vote if they couldn't, if they were blind and they didn't know how to read Braille?
No, because even if someone is blind, you could orally give the test.
Yeah, I agree with Maddie. Also, if someone is like, as if somebody is like, shoot, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Just take a
Yeah.
breath.
You should. There are some people who might have like a disability and they might not be able to understand like what the political message is that maybe someone is running across for like president or so. So if I feel like I personally feel like if they can't know what that person, what the people are saying, they can't make an informed decision about who to vote for. So I think that they should have at least a basic understanding of the candidate's beliefs to vote.
What is the most important responsibility of a citizen today? And explain your answer, please.
I think that the most important thing that a citizen can do today is voting and being informed about our presidential election. Because right now, in the current presidential debate, there are two very, very different sides. There's the Democratic side and the Republican side. They're trying to throw all of this information at each other that is false.
Yeah, I agree with Maddie that the most important part of a citizen is being able to vote, because whenever you vote, you're basically helping what will shape America's future for future generations. So I definitely think that it is the most important part.
I, on the other hand, think that civic virtue is the most important responsibility of a citizen because almost for the same reason that Sophie gave for voting, because it benefits your community, and in benefiting your community, you benefit the country as a whole. So voting is still important, but having civic virtue is more important.
I'm going to jump in there real quick, Drew. Can you tell us what civic virtue means, at least as the way you understand it?
To me, civic virtue is where you put the common good of your community and your country above yourself in times of need. So maybe your self-interest say that you want to go to some sporting event, but instead you know that your community has a big problem with, say, littering or something. So you, instead of going to a sports game, you choose to pick up, all the garbage and, just stuff like that.
I disagree with Drew because civic virtue can mean different things to different people. One person can think that one idea is better for the US as a whole, and one person can think the exact opposite is what is more important to our country as a whole. And with that, I think ties into the Democratic and Republican parties. They both have very different views of what's best for our country.
All right. So my question for you guys, we've talked about, what's the most important responsibility? Do you need to know how to read and write? Do you need to understand these ideas from the Constitution? How are we as Americans that are natural born here, and how are immigrants who are coming into the country, how are we supposed to learn about this kind of thing? Where do we learn about this stuff?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so what it all boils down to is how do we learn what is expected? Like, how do you learn what is expected of you as a citizen? Is that something like, are all babies that are born in America, are they just born knowing what a good citizen is? Or is that something they have to learn? And if they do have to learn, where do they learn?
I think that what a lot of what you do in life and, civic what your values are. That how you're raised is a big part of that. So you end up inheriting a bunch of the ideas that your parents have, and that. So, like, if your parents believe something, that you're fairly likely to believe that thing throughout your life. But as if you're an immigrant, I think that maybe reading some of parts of the Constitution, and just not like in depth, like dissecting it extremely, but just getting a basic understanding of the responsibilities of citizens and their rights. So.
Time has actually elapsed. I wanted to let Drew finish there. If anybody else wants to jump in, we'll give you another 30 seconds or so. Okay, well, we will go ahead and give you some feedback based upon what you said there. So first of all, I really liked, I could tell how much you three care about this issue. It's one thing to talk about what you learned out of the textbook, but you guys really care about citizenship, and you care about whether or not people should have the right to vote, and whether or not they should, show and display civic virtue, and that's refreshing. So well done there, and we're very encouraged. I know I can speak for my other judges that we're encouraged that you guys care about this stuff. I really, really, really liked how bold you were with your opinions. Sophie jumped right out there and said, for somebody who wants to come into this country, you have to know more about citizenship than the people who already live here. That's a bold opinion. Madeline was right out there saying, I disagree with Drew because civic virtue means different things to different people. I really applaud you for jumping out there and having opinions and not being timid about what you believe. I also want to celebrate this idea that Madeline put out there about this, that connecting the parties to civic virtue. That just because you're from the other party doesn't mean you're evil or that you're bad. It just means that you understand what civic virtue is supposed to be in a different way than that party, than your own party does, right? So really, really great. I'm very impressed with your level of understanding on these issues. Mr. Colvin?
As I always say, whenever I judge these, is I learn something every time. So this was somewhat of an opinion question overall. So all three of you were able to give your opinions, and I think that's awesome. And you were throwing in some facts there too, which are obviously very nice. But I think it's you guys. Some of you guys disagreed with each other at different points, but that's the beauty of where we're at in the United States, is we can do that. People can have opinions, and you can disagree. And I think the most important thing is if you're going to disagree, that you come back with your opinion, but also throw some facts out there as well. And so, and I felt like how you guys all presented this, nobody was more, nobody got upset. Sophie, you had your opinion. Maddie, you fired right in and said, well, I disagree, but it was like, okay, and we can have this conversation. I really like that. Drew, I would say, just to make sure when you're ready to answer a question, you're ready to answer it. You're stumbling over your words, and that's part of that's being nervous. And just make sure. A lot of times when I'm in that situation where I'm trying to answer a question, if I really don't know how to answer it, that's when I start stumbling. And I don't know if that was your situation. I think in the end you pulled it out, but just make sure if you're going to jump in that you're ready to answer those questions. And that you're just ready to go. And Sophie, you're saying, $725. I did not know that at all. And and I can tell you, I've seen some questions on the citizenship test, and I've been a U.S. citizen for 46 years, and I couldn't answer some of those questions. So I agree with what Sophie had to say, but I also like what Drew and Maddie had to say too, kind of on the opposite end of that. I think that we need to make sure our citizens are more educated, but I don't know that it shouldn't be an every year thing. And Drew, I think you brought up the 10-year, maybe once every 10 years or something. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I wish I was more informed. And if I had to take a test to become more informed, I think that would just help me become more of an educated voter than I even am right now. So, very good. Nice job, guys.
Yeah. So when you mentioned the amount of money that it takes to put forth that test, like Mr. Colvin mentioned, I'm a college student. I don't make a lot of money, but I pay a lot of money. $725 is a lot, and it's kind of scary, when you think about that from different perspectives of different people. That's a lot, and that's a really scary concept. So the fact that you guys grasp, what an impact that can have is very cool. I want to kind of piggyback with Mr. Williamson and applaud the fact that you guys are blatantly willing to disagree with one another and still be collaborative about it, because that is such a big deal, and that's something that just a lot of people in general, a lot of adults, a lot of anybody has a really hard time seeing past this disagreement as a wall. But you guys are learning early, and you guys are mastering this ability to disagree and use it as a tool and use it as a way to grow as young people. And I think that's phenomenal. And I love to see that you guys are willing to disagree, but willing to work as a unit, because not only is disagreement good in life, but it's also a great way to fill time in the We the People competition, because it's gonna give you guys some stuff to talk about, and it's gonna make it seem like you know a lot of things, which you do know a lot of things, and that's gonna demonstrate that. And I think I had my notes and now they have vanished from my iPad. That's fantastic. Okay, they're gone. Anyway, yeah. So the point of what I want to get across is that that like Unit 6, this Unit 6 scared me when I was in We the People, because it's just such a opinion-based. It's such a modern question, and it's so applicable to modern problems, and you guys tackled that so well. I will say that was what I had written down. I will say, don't be afraid to tie in some things from history. We talk about literacy tests from the past. I don't know if you've ever seen a literacy test from the past. They're gross. They're so gross. They're so hard. Mr. Williams is laughing because we had to take them in his class, and they were awful. You can't pass them. There's just no way. So take a look at that. I encourage you to take a look at old literacy tests, know how that worked, because they were kind of wild. And I think you guys will get maybe a kick out of seeing, what the old literacy tests look like, and that may influence your decision. It may not. I don't know, but take a look at that, because it's kind of neat. But overall, fantastic job, guys. It was great to listen to you guys talk, and I feel smarter after having sat through that. So kudos.
All right. Well, congratulations to the three of you for your hard work. Hopefully we've given you some things to think about for competition next week. Well, that brings us to the end of the Unit 6 hearing. Judges, just kind of hang tight. Students, hang tight. We're going to bring everybody back in for the tail end so that we can say farewell to everybody. So sit tight. Welcome back. This is everyone that participated tonight. Just wanted to do a little farewell from all of our judges. Judges, if you don't mind unmuting yourselves briefly. The first thing we have to do tonight is to recognize the achievement of our students. So judges, if you'll join me in a round of applause for how well they did. There you go. And then I also need to offer a few other acknowledgments. Big thank you to our volunteer judges for taking time out of their lives to do this for us tonight. I know that it was different than what you're used to, judges, but we really appreciate your time and jumping in there to help us out. So students, big round of applause for our judges.
You're all muted.
It's okay. We don't want them to unmute. Horrible feedback. And for anyone who ends up watching this at home later on, we're pretty sure that you're going to be impressed by how much work that these students have put in and just how much they've grown during the process of it. And some of you students, you haven't had a lot of experience in front of an audience. And so, you know, there's a certain amount of courage that goes along with this. We're very proud of what you've accomplished. And we're very, very, very pleased with the fact that you're just taking those first steps into understanding your duty as a citizen and paying attention to what's going on. Because as I tell year after year after year of my own students, this is stuff that you'll never, ever stop using the rest of your life. You will always have a use for this stuff. So congratulations to you. Big thanks to our administration and a huge thanks to the Indiana Bar Foundation for organizing the regional and state hearings and making this entire program possible. So one last big round of applause for all the people that helped us out this year. Okay, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you guys, and good luck at competition next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, great night.
Merry Christmas.